Now to the Idaho College murders investigation. Bryan Kohberger, the suspect, is due in court tomorrow as students return to classes. And investigators share new details about what he was doing before his arrest. Mola Lengi joins with the details. Good morning, Mola.
Well, good morning, George. Those new details are shedding light on how investigators say they were able to link Kohberger, the 28-year-old PhD student, directly to the crime scene and the murder weapon.
This morning, as the suspect accused of murdering 4 University of Idaho students prepares to head back to court, new details emerging about Bryan Kohberger's actions before his arrest. ABC News learning from a law enforcement source that federal investigators observed him in Pennsylvania around 4 a.m. as he discarded garbage in his neighbor's trash bin just days before his arrest. Trash ending up being key in the case. Police linking Kohberger to the murders by collecting his father's DNA from trash outside the family home and matching that to DNA they say they discovered on the button snap of a knife sheath that was on the bed next to the body of victim Madison Mogen.
If I had 1 or 2 words to describe Maddie Mae, it would be just an angel, and that she just made me proud.
Ben Mogen speaking about his daughter Madison to ABC News and describing the moment law enforcement told him they'd made an arrest in the case.
And he said, "Ben, this is the day that we've been waiting for."
Ben also describing his emotions while reading the evidence law enforcement say they had gathered against Kohberger.
I broke down, and I just cried. I could only take so much of that, and I cried. I still haven't read the rest of it.
The police affidavit claiming investigators believe the 4 college students were killed between 4 a.m. and 4:25 a.m. They say one of the surviving roommates was awake at the time of the murders and told police she witnessed the intruder, seeing a masked man coming toward her before he walked out through a sliding glass door, the roommate then locking her door. Police say later that morning, the 2 surviving roommates called friends to the house because they thought one of the victims had simply passed out and wasn't waking up. The 911 call finally coming around noon. Officials say the 2 surviving roommates are not suspects. Overnight, Kaylee Gonsalves' sister, Olivia, saying Kaylee and Madison did everything right that night.
They went out together. They called for a ride. They went to a known establishment. They did everything you would want your daughter or your sister to do in that situation. You're supposed to grow up together. That's your God-given best friend. And so we're left with not only missing them and exactly who they were, but wondering who they were going to become.
On the University of Idaho campus, second semester classes began this week with heightened security. Meanwhile, Kohberger, who was extradited back to Idaho last week, is scheduled to be in court tomorrow morning, guys.
Okay, Mola, thanks. Let's bring in our chief legal analyst, Dan Abrams. And Dan, that evidence from the trash bin, so damning.
Well, because they were able to link that back to the crime scene. That's why it's so damning, is they've got this knife sheath that's at the crime scene where they find DNA that matches the family of Bryan Kohberger. That's why it's so damning. Now, this does raise another question, right, which is supposedly this criminology student, right, who knows the way that things work. It shows you that if he is actually the guy, boy, was he bad at this. I mean, he made mistake after mistake after mistake, and in this case, the authorities actually watching him. So not only do they end up with the DNA evidence, but they have an additional piece in that, well, wait a sec, why is he trying to bring this over to his neighbor's garbage?
It seems like they have a strong case against him. Could he try to strike a plea deal? And if not, as a defense attorney, how do you approach it?
Well, so first let's talk about a possible plea deal. We talked about this the other day with George. The only thing I think that prosecutors would consider accepting would be a guilty plea, maybe to take the death penalty off the table. That's the only kind of plea deal I could see possibly happening here. But if this case goes to trial, expect the defense to attack the buckets of evidence separately. Right? They're going to attack the DNA evidence separately from the cell phone evidence. Cell phone evidence separately from the evidence of the car. What prosecutors will try and do is bring it all together and tell one story saying, watch the car, follow the cell phone, now match it with the DNA, bring it together. Defense attorneys will try and pick it apart piece by piece.
You talked about the prosecutors because there's still no known motive, and there doesn't appear to be a connection between the suspect and the victims. Do prosecutors need to make a connection? Do they need to to establish a motive.
They don't. They don't. And that remains one of the most bizarre things about this case, right? Which is, why did he do this? Why? And they don't have to answer that question in court to potentially get a conviction. But the world still wants to know.
The families want to know.
The families want to know. Everyone in that community wants to know, why would he have done this? And this certainly does lead people to speculate, was it again just because he was a criminology student trying to see if he could somehow beat the system? We don't know. But that is something that they're continuing to investigate.
Okay, Dan Abrams, thank you very much. Much more on this story is coming up Friday night. 2020 horror in Idaho, the student murders. That's at 9, 8 Central.
Well, hey there, GMA fans. Robin Roberts here. Thanks for checking out our YouTube channel. Lots of great stuff here. So go on, click the subscribe button right over here to get more of awesome videos and content from GMA every day, anytime. We thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the morning on GMA.